Greetings, fellow Siegers. Hero Siege Season 7 is officially set to launch on June 6th, bringing with it a wave of exciting new content. A brand new seasonal feature, powerful in-game bosses, an all-new class, reworked and newly added items, expanded blood pack support, hundreds of balance changes across all classes, and massive performance, anti-cheat, and server stability upgrades. And that's just the beginning. Be sure you mark your calendars, this season is shaping up to be a fun one. In today's video, I'll be walking you through a complete build guide. We'll cover everything that you need to know from pros and cons, leveling strategies, skill and sub-skill tree progression, attribute allocation, gearing recommendations for budget, mid-game, and end-game setups. I'll also break down optimal mercenary pairings, loot filter tips, and some helpful resources I've created to support you guys on your journey through the season. A full written version of this guide will be available on my website shortly after the video goes live, and as always, timestamps will be available for your convenience. If you're new here, I'm Graxy. I create ARPG-focused content with a strong emphasis on Hero Siege. My channel features build guides, game mechanic breakdowns, how-to tutorials, and content for both new and experienced players. If you enjoy this kind of content, consider subscribing to stay up to date with the latest Hero Siege news and guides. Your support, whether through a like, comment, or small donation, help keeps the channel going strong. Let's dive into it. This guide was created during the closed beta phase of Season 7 and is based on the content and mechanics available at that time. Please note that certain features, balance changes, or other game elements may be updated or modified as the game progresses towards its official release. The information presented here may not fully reflect the final version of the game, and some aspects could be subject to change. While I strive to provide accurate and effective build recommendations, future adjustments by the developers may impact the viability of certain strategies. Always refer to the official patch notes for the latest insights and information. Alrighty, let's get into the life stacking summon Necro for Season 7. The life stacking Necromancer in Hero Siege is a powerful in-game build that revolves around maximizing survivability and scaling your damage through life stacking mechanics. The setup does utilize the Damned Legion skill, which focuses on amplifying your damage through the Necromancer's own health pool. Let's talk about some pros and cons of the build. Just a heads up, this is kind of a big one, right? You get meat shields, you have lots of them. That's fantastic for that survivability. As well as you have life stacking, you can get 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60,000 life on this build and some of the more endgame gear, as well as if you have a Viking that's giving you some combat orders, you can get a lot of life that way as well. So tons of stuff that you can do there. You can clear Hell 5 in pretty much white gear, right? You don't really need a whole lot to get this build going other than just a few things we'll talk about. You have built-in teleport through Poison Nova. You have a built-in source of burning from your mages, which is fantastic for scaling your damage, as well as the Damned Legions can crit, which we'll talk about kind of how that works. But it is going to require some snapshotting for your minions to have maximum damage potential. If you're not sure how snapshotting works, I do have a section talking about that, but you will have to snapshot your minions to get the most out of their, say, single target damage or zone damage, because snapshotting only stays for one zone. It does fall off whenever you switch different zones. Also, Necromancer is kind of slow to level. If you've ever tried to level a Necromancer until you hit level 35, it's kind of painful. So heads up. Low damage ceiling and mediocre single target. Doesn't have crazy single target. It's just a very comfy build to play. Now, I will show what the build will look like if you tried to scale it with a life stacking, but it is going to be a better build if you transition it into a full summoner build. That would be for a different video, but I do show what it would be like if you went, big dick into the life stacking variant, as well as all summoners have a shitload of buttons, or all the Necro summoner variants have a ton of buttons. You can see here's my action bar here. There's a lot going on, right? Now, real quickly, let's talk about the life stacking mechanics. I will have this available in the written guide that's available on the website. If you're not sure how snapshotting works, if you need some additional information, please go check this out so you kind of understand what's going on here. Now, as far as leveling goes, this build does not start taking off until we hit level 35. This is when you gain access to your first life to damage conversion node that's available in the Damned Legion sub skill tree. If you're not sure what any of that just meant, we're going to talk about that. But just a heads up, this build does kind of feel like shit until that point. You can play other variants if you don't want to go with the summoner playstyle from the beginning. You can play a poison variant, you can play a bone shred variant. Personally, I found that the summons was the best way. If you have summons leveling with you, maybe have them go with a bit more of a carry class early on. That way they can help you get to level 35, and then you'll be carrying the shit out of them. But 35 is a night and day difference. You will be blasting. And now that you get your augment to level 40, it's kind of funny. I ain't gonna lie. It's kind of funny. So just a heads up. Now, again, for leveling, I went with the summoner tree. I've done it a couple of times. This is just what I'm the most comfortable with. I don't mind Skelly leveling or summon leveling. Doesn't bother me that much. Do put some points into bone shreds. You'll have 1 point into your Skellies, then you'll have the rest into bone shred. This is going to be really nice early on comparatively to the those summons, just because this can shotgun. So you get a bunch of bone shreds that will, you know, be rammed into one target at a time that will kill that target, and that should help you for your 1 through 7. Then at level 8, we kind of switch out of that and we go fully into the minions, and that's what that tree would look like. Basically just maxing out what we can for our minions. I like to go all into the Skellies early on. I feel like they do a bit more damage right at the very beginning than the Skelly mages. As well as at level 16, we're going to continue putting those points into Skelly warriors, as well as our summon mastery. This is going to give them more life, more damage. At level 24, At level 24, we'll put 1 point into Damn Legion, then continue maxing your raid skeletons. At this point, you can try these Skelly mages, right? There's nothing wrong with it. If you want to dump these points out and respec, it's free to respec anytime. Try the Skelly mages, do the same thing, put points into Skelly mages, put points into the Summon Mastery, and see if that works out a little bit better for you. And do that all the way until we hit level 35. At 35, respec that bitch into legions instantly. Be sure that you take this node, Crimson Aura, on the sub-skill tree. Be sure you take it. If you don't take it, you're going to hate yourself. Then be sure that you put 20 points into Damned Legion. In the end game, we're not going to do this, but right at the start of the game, the legions do not have that much life, and you as a player do not have that much life. And this is not going to work if we don't give them life. So be sure you put a point into it and then dump 20 points into Damned Legion, right? It's going to give them the most amount of juice. And then the rest of it will go into the Summon Mastery. This gives your minions additional % life. Right. Now, I will also mention for those of you that are like, did life stacking Necro get nerfed? Crimson Aura did. Yeah, it did get nerfed from 35% conversion to 22.5, I think, or 25.5, something like that. It's in the patch notes. Check that out. It did get a little bit of a nerf. So I think at one point in the mid game, I was doing like 500 mil, or sorry, in the mid game, like in white gear, essentially, I was doing like 500 mil multi. So instead of it being 500 mil, we're going to be doing like 300 mil, 350 mil, something like that. It's totally fine. Completely fine. You're in white gear at that point. So just a heads up. Now at level 40, we do gain access to our augments. Here's what our tree is going to look like. Continue maxing that Summon Mastery. Level 70, same thing. Continue maxing that Summon Mastery. Put some points. You could go over the resistances. You could go, you could get more points to amp damage. This will give you some arcane break for like the other minions if you want to try and get some supplemental damage. Completely up to you. I think that just getting the res to make sure that they don't die is probably your best option. And then finally, at level 100, here's our final tree. Once again, we're only going to be putting 1 point into the Damn Legion. It does absolutely nothing to put more points into it. You're never going to get any more life on this Damn Legion that would have any significant amount of effect in this part of the game, right? Don't need to put anything more than 1 point into it. And then you can see that we spec out minions, right? We're still a minion build. We still have the boys tanking for us. Make sure you put a point into things like Poison Nova. Make sure that you get your meat bombs. This will help you with summoning more courier corpses. The corpse explosion here is just for MTX. You don't have to have this if you don't want to. I just like to put it on because I think it's fun to get extra circles everywhere. So yeah, that's what our final tree will look like. And then getting just a few points into the frenzy can help with just again your supplemental damage. Okay, if you're not familiar with sub-skill trees, these were a new feature back in season 5. Basically, you hit these plus signs on skills. It's going to open up another window that looks like this. This is where we're able to spec out these skills a little bit more and give them more juice, give them different setups, the different features, that sort of thing. So we're going to talk about all the different ones here. The first one, the most important one, is our Damned Legion. This is what our tree is going to look like for maximum damage output. You get more legions, you get tons and tons of life, right? This is the tree you hunt. There's not really many variants you can go with this. Then we have our Skelly Warriors. This is the tree I prefer. It gives you a shitload. I think you get 18 summons, 17 summons, something like that, total for the Skelly Warriors. Here's what our Skelly Mages are going to be. This is only important for applying burning to enemies, right? These Skelly Warriors are only there to tank monsters and stay alive. The Skelly Mages are pretty much only there to apply burning to give us extra damage to burning monsters. That's all their purpose is, right? So this did get a nerf. Skelly Mages did. You don't get as many of them now. Who cares? It doesn't matter. They're probably never going to die anyway. We only need them to proc burns, and they're going to be doing it all the time. For Vengeful Spirit, this tree allows you to turn your Spirit Vessel into applying the poison status effect. This is for later gearing alternatives. Completely optional. You can go something else here. You can get more of them. You can do some shenanigans with like the whirlpools or whatever. But this is just for later gearing. It really doesn't matter what you do with the Vengeful Spirit. Again, this is a fully a life stacker, and you're not going to get any damage on your damn legions from anything besides getting life and crit and things like that. So meat bombs. Here's what we're going to go for meat bombs. We're just trying to get as many corpses as we can just to make it easier to summon our minions. Corpse explosion, completely. This is only just for MTX. You don't have to do this at all. Try it out. If you think it's funny, do it. If you don't, turn it off. Poison Nova. This is how you get teleport at level 40. And then just continue specking out points to give it range. And then we also get the ability to slow monsters and make them do less damage with this skill, which is kind of crazy. So that's what that tree would look like. For attribute allocations, while we're leveling from 1 to 35, you'll put 2 points intelligence, 2 points vitality, get enough energy to feel comfortable. If you get some mana on charms and stuff, you don't need the energy, but if you might need a little bit of energy right at the very start of the game just because you don't have any. And so you can also get some arcane skill damage. This will help because if you're killing things really fast, you're not going to need as much energy because you're not spending as much, you're not casting as much. Now, once you get fully into the summons around like 24, 30, something like that, you could probably go full vitality if you would like to, or vice versa. You could go like full int, just get the most damage and stand back. However you want to work this out. But 2-2 is the rule of thumb for most builds. Then once you hit level 35, take that shit out. Once you hit level 35, you're going to go all vitality. Nothing else matters in terms of your damage, right? You don't need the intelligence anymore. In terms of your attributes, you just need all vitality from there on. For gearing, this section is designed to give you some workable suggestions on what gear to acquire at different stages of the game. This is going to show you from levels 1 to 34. Then it's going to show you from level 35 all the way to 100, your budget gearing, your mid-game gear, and then what setups I have for the end game. Once again, this stuff is just suggestions. There are other ways that you can build the character or put it together. These are just what I recommend. This will all be available in the written guide that is available on the website, graceguides.com, but I will talk about them here. So for early leveling from 1 to 34, I cannot guarantee that you're going to get any particular satanics to help you. If you find some, great. Like there's Tabula that you could get at the beginning of the game. That's insane. However, I'm not going to tell you to go farm out a Tabula. It's a waste of your damn time. So level through, if you get satanics, cool. If not, no worries. Now, there are some rune words that we can get that will help us on our journey. But fortunately, because we're a life stacker, we don't really need them. There's not really a whole lot of rune words that are going to be that effective for us early on. There's a couple. I do have those listed in here. You can get things like Sky Song. Now, Sky Song is only going to be really useful for giving us more cast rates so we can teleport faster. The skills isn't really doing that much. Maybe like right when you hit level 35, it'll give the damn legions a bit of life. But once you start scaling your life and their life starts scaling a ton from skills, they're just going to have so much fucking life that these little like plus skills that you put into the skill isn't actually going to do that much. So just a heads up. For shields, you go with Divine Contemplation or Sky Song. Either one of these. Sky Song giving you faster cast rate, teleport more. Divine Contemplation giving you a bunch of resistances. Helmets, you could go with a Scholar if you want some sustain. You could also put on a Flesh Ripper just to get resistances. Super cheap. But other than that, there's really not a whole lot that you really need to get. You could get some Quick Steps just to give you a ton of movement speed, or Ghosts, once again, just to give you a ton of movement speed. But you don't have to do any of that. You're really at level 1 to 100 realistically. You're just looking for any sources of life that you can get so that when you hit that level 35 mark, you can just absolutely blast. And you're 1 through 34, there's really not a whole lot of gear that you can get in those levels. It's gonna make that much of a difference. Okay, so once again, once you hit level 35, all you care about is life, resistances, get faster cast rates, you can teleport faster. Anything else is dog shit. You don't need it. Now, for budget gearing, things change a little bit, right? This is level 100. You just hit level 100 on your character. There's not really any best in slot gear at this point, especially for the life stacking necro, but there's some different things that we can do, right? It really comes down to how much
you care about swapping in and out your gear and having the most damage and blah, 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 right? And how much life do you want? Do you want resistances? And there's some different things that you can do here. So let's talk about them, right? Once again, this will also be available for you to kind of skim through yourself. So if I kind of go through this a bit quickly, you'll be able to check out this stuff on the website so you know what's going on. And then we, of course, have example setups, right? You can check out all these example setups and get an idea of what I was wearing to get certain levels of damage. But generally speaking, all you care about is getting white items. I kid you not, getting white items off the ground with maximum sockets and throwing in these Wildren jewels, right? These things right here, these are Wildren jewels. These are going to give you 6% life per jewel. It has been nerfed. It was 7%. It is now 6% per. Yeah. Do that on your weapons, do that on your shield, do that on your helmet, do that on your chest, do that on your boots. And then if you have any other sockets anywhere that's left over, put them in there. You can farm these suckers in normal. You go to the abandoned mine in Act 4.3, whatever, Highland Graveyard, Highland Mine. There's a mine in there. Bottom left of that, there's a shitload of copper. Vote reset, do that over and over. You have a teleport. It'll take you like 20 minutes. Right? Make like 40 of these, right? Make like 40 of these, super simple, and then dump them all in your gear at level 100. You're going to have a stupid amount of life. If you can find bases that have life on them, even better. You can find a helmet with 4 sockets that has, 200 life on it, or another 10%, 15% life on the base. Huge, right? It's just way more damage for you. You could also look for resistances. You could look for like movement speed on the boots. You could look for things like that. You do not care about skills. Okay? You do not care about skills. Other things that you could do, like on the weapon, you could go for something like, faster cast rate early on and just help you maneuver around. Same for the shield and that sort of thing. Now, there are a couple exceptions to this. In the early game, you can also crit with this build. Okay? Because of just how the build functions, it is a technically physical damage that the damned legions are doing. You get crit damage, and you get crushing blow. If you're not sure what crushing blow is, basically it puts a debuff on the monster to make them take 10% increased damage, and this stacks up to 5 times. So you can make them take 50% increased damage. Crushing blow does work with the build. So I have some different options here, right? Darkness, crit, very good to get early on. And Will of Thanos, you can put this on your back bar. This will give you more life. For shields, once again, there's this Bob's Peace shield. That can be really nice. And Ren Guard of the Carnage. I don't know why I have a whole thing here. But Ren Guard of the Carnage will also give you some crit and crushing blow. Right? Very nice. Same thing for helmets. Pillard Vanquishers, a bunch of crit and crit damage. You also get some vitality on here. For chest pieces, we also have the Anubis set. The Anubis set can give you a shitload of life. Great option as well. So I do have that listed here. If you are having trouble maybe finding some of these other gear pieces, the Anubis set should be fairly cheap. You can pick that up, throw a bunch of Wildren on it, and that'll give you a pretty healthy pool of life to be able to farm with. Otherwise, any of these other options can be fine. I actually wore Heaven's Might when I was in a Paw Pact. I wear Heaven's Might for quite a while when I was playing the build initially, and it did great. You get a bunch of damage reduction on it. You get a bunch of sockets with it. It's also fantastic. For gloves, if you're wearing the Anubis set, go to the Anubis gloves. War Masters is going to give you that crit damage. Otherwise, just find some like life crit mythic gloves. Boots, again, Wildren Jewels in a 4-socket pair of boots. Belts, any of these will be fine. Brute Core, give me that crit damage, right? You could also go Ashen Belt. This gives you up to 500 life. That can be really nice. And you get a bunch of res and stuff with it. Rings, any of these are great, right? Your Coda Wedding Band's got a buff. You get up to 40% movement speed. You probably don't need because you have teleport, but you do get 415 life at level 100. The Ring of Talon is also getting a buff with up to 200 life, and you get percent life. So this might end up being maybe a little bit more. It kind of depends on where you're at with your gearing. So either one of these is going to be the most damage. If you want to get some resistances, you can go Satanic Eyes. You can also just find Mythic Rings with a bunch of life on them and throw those on, right? For amulets, any of these are perfect. If you're running the Anubis set, go the Anubis one. Otherwise, Ravenclaw is your crit version. And then you have Shining Pearl for attributes. And All Seeing Eyes if you just want the magifying skills, ain't going to do nothing. For charms, you can see I have a bunch of charms listed out here. These are going to be really nice. Things like Hello, It's Me, Steve, and Tall Zeskull. Shitload of life on these. Absolute shitload. Anubis' Zong Charm up to this is a buff now. This goes up to 850 life. That's crazy. And 18%. Beetle life, Hardened Steel Defender. All this stuff is insane. You will want them. Now, to transition this build into the mid game, there's going to be a few things that we can do. Now, I have shown all of my damage setups here without snapshotting, okay? Because I think it's important to give you realistic expectations. There ain't no way in hell that I would ever expect anyone to zone by zone be swapping gear for snapshotting. However, for certain bossing situations, of course you would do that, right? So all of this information here is without snapshotting. You can get way more damage by doing that. Okay, so didn't want to show you some fucked up numbers that were unrealistic. Because you're never gonna get that number. You're not gonna swap your gear for just a zone encounter every time you vote reset. That's crazy. Unless you are crazy, then maybe you will. But you can't do that if you'd like to. If you don't know what I'm talking about with snapshotting, here's in the doc, there's a whole section that talks about it, teaches you how to do it. Yeah, that's snapshotting. So here's what we have with different pieces of gearing on. We are jawing everything, getting tons of life that way. To be honest with you, the difference between the jaw and the Wildrons, like I even show that here. Like here's my gearing with a bunch of jaws in, and here's my gearing with the Wildron jewels. And it's a 60% life difference here. And you can see my damage isn't that different. Like obviously it is more damage, but it's not like, oh my God, that you have to have all jaws or this build doesn't function, right? And a lot of this gearing isn't that expensive early on. It's not too bad. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about our mid game. For weapons, Bonetti's is an upgraded darkness. Softest Cooking Cleaver, the reason we have this on here is this gives us extra damage to burning monsters. Do you remember when I told you that the Skelly Mages have burning for free? That will work for our boys, right? Very nice. You can even put this on your weapon swap, but on your back bar, use it for bossing. For offhands, we have Gabriel's Unholy Oath. This can be used. This will give you some of these summon heretics, right? These guys just do a lot of damage by themselves. You also get resistances, you get life, you get all sorts of stuff on Gabriel's Unholy Oath. I really like Tombstone. Tombstone just has all sorts of good stuff on it, right? You get res, you get sockets, you get a shitload of base life, right? Just a really nice shield. Excuse me. We also have the Crematorium's Pledge. This thing also gets % life. You could roll this on a life based shield, and this will give us up to 60% extra damage to burning monsters. You could pair this with our Stoffix weapon, right? And these two together are going to give you over 100% extra damage to burning monsters. It's beautiful for bossing. So those are good options. For helmets, there's a new helmet from Endrixia in the Ruby Gardens, right? Dragon Knight's helmet. This will give you up to 40% extra damage to burning monsters. This is important if you're using the Stoffix or the Crematorium's Pledge. Just a side note, you don't have to use the Stoffix and the Crematoriums together. You could just use the Crematoriums to get that extra damage and then, spawn the helm with it, right? That could be a good option to get a bunch of extra damage. You could also slam Pit Lord Vanquishers, right? Hit them with Satanic Crystals and try to get some crazy slams on them. They give you a bunch of damage that way. Also, Eternal Death. This thing's cracked, right? Look how much life is on this. 70%, right? It's actually insane. You also get Vitality. Pretty insane. Chests. If you want a better teleport, you'll go Enigma. Because I'll be honest with you, Poison Nova gets annoying sometimes. It doesn't have as much range either, and you can get stuck. So Enigma is the better teleport if you want to go that. Otherwise, a Gem King's Garb with pristine rubies, will give you fire skills, but it also gives you 60 vitality and 60% life. So that's insane. Okay. There's also Leviathan's Carcass. This gives you up to 6 sockets. You could throw a bunch of the juice in there and you get 1,000 flat. You get a bunch of %. You also get reduced damage taken, which since it's kind of hard to cap your reses on this build, you just have so much life that you kind of don't really care about resistances. But it's a little bit weird capping res. This will make it maybe a bit easier since you just get damage reduction, right? For gloves, if you are using the Vengeful Spirits, right? If you're using those vengeful spirits, those guys can poison monsters. You can use Plaguebringer's touches. This is really good for bossing just because it gives you that extra damage to poison monsters. You could also go Grasp of the Phoenix since we have that burn on the Skelly mages. Otherwise, you could just go for, whatever crazy life mythics or those war masters. You could slam some of those and try and get a crazy pair of those gloves. Now for boots, two different options here, right? We have the Venom Roamers. You can wear those if you have your Vengeful Spirit with the poison node on. This will give you extra damage to poison monsters, which we have, right? Or if you get the Scorching Roamers, you can go the burn version because our Skelly mages get burned. Otherwise, just like Pearlescent Dreams, these can be okay, right? You're better off, honestly, just rocking a white with a bunch of Wildern Jewels in it. But if you would like to have maybe some resistances and some magifying and stuff, you don't really care, like you're doing enough damage, by all means, these can be a nice option as well. For a belt, Rugal is really strong. You can get a bunch of resistances and physical damage reduction from the meat proc. However, you have this skill, so you can just use it yourself, right? Otherwise, Brute Cords, you can slam these, try and get some extra juice on them. Sash of Eternal Hatred, maybe you get like a double life roll on this. That could be really nice. Girdle of Eternal War, if you have access to Inferno or the Auction House, girdles are insane for the build, as you just get so much damn life on them, right? As well as crit damage. It's just beautiful. For rings, you can see we have Azazels. You'll want to go and get Gurag Souls for your Azazels. This is going to give you the most life. Otherwise, Elven Graces now have 2 skills on them, and you get crit damage. Try and slam these, get sockets, put more life in. Same thing for Kodo Wedding Bands. You could slam these, get a socket, put more life in, that sort of thing. Amulets. You see we have Steve Neck. If you're crazy, you can slam these, but Steve Neck, like a good rolled one, is fantastic. If you're going the crit swap, if you're doing snapshotting for crit swapping, then you would want Griffin's Claw. This is going to be the most amount of damage. And then we also have Pendant of Eternity. This is used for teleporting faster for speed clearing. And we have Philosopher's Stone if you're trying to get those resistances capped. You can see this now has 5 skills on it too, which is kind of nice. For charms, get a tablet. You're going to want it. It gives you a shitload of life, right? Because you can get up to 4 sockets on there, put a bunch of jaws in it, shitload of life. There's also, let me zoom down here. The Abomination set can be okay, right? Because this is going to give you an additional summon. Very important to the build. You get an additional damn Legion, just more damage because you have more boys out. Same thing for things like Fulgurite, Annihilus. These things just have all attributes on them. It's going to give you more damage just because of the pure attribute stacking that you have available to you. Things like Eye of Rakul, you can get this from King Rakul and the Chaos Tower. This gives you your combat orders. You can see there's % life on this, which is really nice. And there's the new Indrixia charm. This has a socket on it. You don't really care about the magic skill damage, but this could be nice if maybe you are going to go boss on this, as they can give you an execute. And it's at level 5, it's 8.75%, which isn't something to scoff about, right? 8.75% is kind of a big execute. That could be useful as well. This can be farmed from Hell 5 Indrixia. Back in Season 6, we got the access to those Satanic Crystals. That can change a lot about maybe some gearing that you do just because you hit a good slam. But otherwise, I'm going to show you some example setups that I did during testing, but the best build here is just the one that worked for you. Alrighty, and then finally, here are our example setups. This shows you the before snapshotting and the after snapshotting, so you can kind of get an idea of how much of a difference that actually makes for the build. Just keep in mind that the life stacking was nerfed, so the damage will be similar to around the 64% of the damage in the screenshots that are shown here, right? So you can take these values, because I'm pretty geared out in these characters, right? You can take these values and you are going to take 30% away from them, right? Because that is how much of a nerf that the scaling to your damage got. And that would be about the damage that you would see with this same gearing on. Still more than viable. It's not the most OP build in the game, but it's a very comfy build. It's easy to build into. It's not a whole lot that you really have to worry about. So yeah, here's what we got. Alrighty, for relics, we are going to be using crit relics, right? Because our minions do physical damage and we get crit with them. So Twin Blade, Nunchucks, Razor Blade, Butterfly Knife, all these give us either crit chance or crit damage. That's really nice. You can swap these out, right? If you wanted to get maybe like Cake or Mayo Sock, or you wanted like, instead of maybe 1 crit relic, you go Lost Wand, just get more FCR to zoom around quicker. More than able to do that. But these are the staple crit relics that we'll be looking for. For potions, you can see that we have things like Wizard Potion for FCR, pops, right? We can get Magic Find, skills, movement speed. The caffeinated coffee container is really important. This gives us increased damage to burning targets, and we always burn with our mages. So this is a very important potion to get. And lastly, for chest augments, lethal tempo is most likely going to provide the most amount of damage because you get crit damage on it. It's going to give you 8% crit damage per level, so 56% crit damage total. Alrighty, let's talk about mercenaries. Currently in season 7, mercenaries generally only have one purpose. They're just magic find war bots. Mercenaries magic find is applied to your on kill magic find. So if you were to take a magic find item and throw it on your mercenary and open up your character screen, you'll see under the magic find section that that number didn't go up. But if you select mercenary and then look at that magic find value, it did go up. That value is applied to kills that you get on your character. Even though it doesn't show in the actual character section, this is just to show you the difference between the magic find that you have on your actual character and the magic find that you have on your mercenary. So you want to be stacking as much magic find as you can possibly get on this mercenary. I cannot stress this enough how important this is. People will come into my stream, they'll message me on Discord, they'll ask in Discord chat, just everywhere. Hey bro, I'm having a hard time finding items. What do you suggest? And I'll ask them, yo, what's your mercenary look like? And they will have either no items, just no mercenary at all. Now in Hero Siege, there are 3 mercs, Act 1, Act 3, and Act 6. We do not use the Act 6 merc most of the time. It just doesn't offer enough utility. You get some arcane break on it and it can randomly give you a shield, which is cool. But it just doesn't offer the same utility of the Act 1 and the Act 3 mercs do. So Act 1 merc can generally get the most magic find as it's a sword and board class. So you have just more socket availability to put more magic find in, as well as they have good supporting items for magic find in those slots. But they're going to have a lower level of fanaticism if you are trying to go for that, if you're aiming to go for fanaticism on your character, if attack speed applies to you. The Act 3 merc can use bows. So this is going to leave us in a situation where we have a little bit less sockets and there's not really a whole lot of bows in the game that provide magic find. And again, we are going to be most likely using the fanaticism bow just to get as much attack speed for our character as we can. The other nice thing about the Act 3 mercenary is you can get a proc from her that'll give you 100% attack speed. This is really, really nice whenever you're maybe fighting a boss. 100% attack speed is no joke. And if you're a caster character, just go the Act 1 merc. Here's a list of some different weapons for your mercenary. These are all just going to depend on whether you're taking the Act 1 or the Act 3 mercenary. Again, Act 3 mercenary cannot wear maces. It's a bow character, so the Sacred Whip, the Ceremonial Dagger, and the Death Smear, you'll have to use those on the Act 1 mercenary. But you can use the Valkyrie. That's a really nice bow with fanaticism on it. Otherwise, just honestly throw any bow that you can because the mercenary doesn't do damage anyway. And then for the Act 1 merc, we also have Aurora's Might. This can give us Lunar Aura. This is a ton of resistances. Very nice to have early on to cap those resistances. Otherwise, just pick any of these options. Death Smear is probably going to be the most expensive. Throw as many Istrunes in there as you can. This will give you a ton of early magic find. Same thing for chests. These are just different levels of magic find. So Uppies, Mystic Allure, Heaven's Might, Empires, Military Plate. All these have magic find on them. Heaven's Might technically doesn't, but it does have 6 sockets. You could throw 6 discs in here if you wanted to. As well as you can see that you get a ton of physical damage and magical damage reduction on the Heaven's Might. Very, very nice chest. And then I did list out a couple of tankier chests like Leviathan's Carcass and Nazarius's. These offer a ton of damage reduction. You can see Leviathan's 1,000 life and 23% life increase. 6 sockets, you could throw a bunch of Isrune in there. Same thing for Azarius, you get damage reduction, you get the all res. The very tanky chest pieces that you could throw on your mercenary to try to get him to survive some of those hits in Inferno and even some of the Ubers in Hell 5. Same thing applies to helmets. Here's some different levels of magic find helmets. You also get physical and magical damage reduction and up to 30% all res on a Harley Quinn. Very nice helmet for your mercenary. And lastly, the offhands. Once again, just different levels of magic find. Leprechaun's Greed is an SS tier. It's going to be the most expensive, the most rare. However, you can't find a novice tower. This thing's insane for just being an S tier. You have a increased magic find roll. You have an increased magic find based on level. You also have up to 4 sockets to put Is in it. That is a ton of magic find for an S tier. Again, socket any of these with a bunch of Is runes. Is are honestly quite common, so it's not going to hurt you to pick up some of these items early and then swap into different ones later on. Because our goal is to get magic find on our mercenary as quick as we can. After hitting level 100, hero levels in Hero Siege can offer some significant power boosts, but which nodes do you take first? Knowing which nodes to prioritize can make a big difference. There are several effective strategies for optimizing your hero level tree, depending on your character's current progression and gear. This section includes a detailed written guide outlining popular approaches used by the community. If you prefer a visual walkthrough, I do have a YouTube video available with full timestamps. And just to give you a quick scroll through of kind of what that written guide looks like, we go through all the different setups that are available, whether you're an attacker or a caster, and what that would look like if you tried to prioritize certain things and why you might prioritize certain nodes over others. After level 100, glyphs can be socketed into your hero level tree and offer additional utility to enhance your gameplay. Currently, glyphs do not provide direct player power, making their selection entirely preference-based, depending on the content that you wish to engage with. I do have a full YouTube video that describes how glyphs work, so you can get a bit more information if you're not sure what glyphs look like, how to level them up. If you scroll down on this guide, you will find additional information. This will show you every glyph at their level 0, 6, and 8 value, as well as it'll tell you how much it increases by per allocated attribute in its range, its current attribute type, and a description. Alrighty, let's talk loot filters and more specifically league start filters. Now, I'm gonna be pretty blunt about this because I want to make sure that I get my point across so that it's clear. I cannot make loot filters before Season 7's patch actually hits the game. I can't do it in Season 7 beta. I can't do it in the Season 6 client. There is no way that myself or anybody can get you a filter before the season starts for the most part. Now, I did make a video in Season 6 that talks about the loot filter, highlight filters for any class in the game for starters. There is technically a way to set it up before the season starts because the patch actually hits about an hour before the game goes live. So there's single player, you can jump into single player on the new season and you can quickly make a filter and put those on a notepad, whatever you need to do, and then just import them whenever the season actually starts. So I do have a full video explaining how all of that works and what you will need to do. So if you're not sure how that works, be sure you check out that video. And then of course I do have the full written guide that explains every single archetype and what I put on each of those archetypes so that you can kind of practice. You can jump into Season 6, pretend that it's, league start day, make your filter really fast. You can get familiar with where everything is at. And it's honestly quite easy. Now, if you're a newer player, you're just not really sure how the loot filters work. Loot filters in Hero Siege are not Path of Exile filters, right? They're not going to hide 95% of the items on the ground. You're not going to start seeing that until you get later into the game. So you are going to still see quite a bit of items when you first start the game, and it's going to feel like the loot filter is not working, but it is. As well as the highlight filter is the main part of the loot filter. The highlight part is actually highlighting affixes on items that you care about. Right, so whenever you're playing through the game, you'll see this giant beam, and I don't know what color it is. I think it's orange. But it'll be like an orange beam and an orange highlighted item. You'll be like, oh, that's highlighted. I should probably pick that up. Yes, it's because your highlight filter is highlighting that item. So the highlight filter is very, very important. The loot side of it, not as big of a deal. If you don't want to do all of that for your starter filter, there are in-game presets that you can use for both the filter and the highlight section. So you're simply just going to click Escape, Options, Gameplay, and Loot Filter. This is going to make your screen look like this right here. On the right side, you can see all the highlight presets and the different archetypes, like if you're playing a physical attacker, or you're playing a cold caster, or an arcane caster, or a life stacker, or any of that stuff. All of that will be in here. You can just click on it and go, right? Same thing for the loot side of it on the left. If you're in normal difficulty at the very start of the season, you'll be in normal. You just click normal. Once you hit Nightmare, you'll click Nightmare. Once you hit Hell, you'll click Early Hell, right? And you just kind of level with both of these together. And then as you play, you're welcome to click on these and go in and, add some different stuff into them if you would like to. And then of course you have in-game filters. I don't have a way to give you an in-game filter until the season actually starts. So once we get the season going, I've played for a couple of days. At that time, I will be able to provide some in-game filters. And our last section is additional resources. This section really walks you through the best strategies for each phase of your journey. If you're a newer player to Hero Siege, be sure that you read through these first few sections just to gain a better understanding of Hero Siege mechanics and how things work. And also check this section a couple of times before season starts, as I do plan to add some things to it. First up is our beginner guide. If you're newer to Hero Siege, I have a 2.5-hour video that goes through all of the basics from making a character and installing the game to how Ubers work. So be sure you check that video out. There are a few things that you need to know before you get started, like equipping your companion. Everyone gets one of these for free. Be sure you set up your highlight filter. In the video, I do have a full section on the highlight filter. Configure any controls. Here's currently my settings if you would like to copy what mine looks like. I also suggest that you change your minimap hotkey to tab. This will make your minimap overlay permanent like D2 or Path of Exile, instead of it being something that you have to constantly press. Swap your game to 60 FPS. Even if you have an insane PC, trust me, you're not going to see a difference in your frames, but your performance will be much better. And in order to assign skills, you actually click on the right-click skill, and that will open up a menu to assign your skills. Now, there are no required quests in Hero Siege. I do, however, recommend that you complete your Act 1 normal quests. Those are going to give you a mid rune, a ton of the lower runes, a movement speed charm, and a movement speed potion. These are all really nice to have while you're leveling up, especially for being just Act 1 normal. The same thing will happen in Act 1 Nightmare. You'll get up to a Vex rune, as well as a bunch of low runes. And then once you get into Act 1 Hell, you'll get a few mid runes. Same thing for Act 2 Hell, and Act 3 Hell is when you will actually get your first high rune. So those are the quests that I recommend that you complete. In Hero Siege, there's additive damage and skill damage. Additive damage is weapon damage. It is damage that you're gaining when your weapon physically hits an enemy or strikes an enemy. This can be from a ranged weapon, a wand, a sword. It doesn't matter. It's your weapon physically striking a monster is additive damage. It is not multiplicative damage. Skill damage, however, is multiplicative damage. It is giving your skill base damage. So to give you an example of this, there's a skill in Hero Siege called Lightning Fury. Quite common in a lot of ARPGs. You basically take your big hammer, you strike a mob with it, and a bunch of lightning goes out everywhere and chains to a bunch of monsters. If you had both additive lightning damage and lightning skill damage, the additive lightning damage would be affected when your weapon struck the monster, right? And then the skill damage would be affecting the lightning's damage. So there's two different instances of damage that's happening on that strike. Generally speaking, additive damage is great early game, absolutely terrible in the end game because there's no way to scale it. And skill damage is a little less effective early, but becomes very, very potent as you level through the game and as you get into the end game. If you haven't checked out the Season 7 patch notes, that is available in here. There is an official Hero Siege wiki that's launched recently. This has a ton of information. There's a link to that. Now, once you hit level 100, I do have a section here talking about the early game, giving you progression tips and tricks, because a lot of people are expecting, some mapping system or monolith system, or they're expecting to go somewhere and do repeatable content. And Hero Siege doesn't directly work that way. It has a bit of a different system. So this talks about that system a bit in video form, or I do have the full written guide available here. You can read through all of it to get an idea of what we should be doing in order to progress that early game. Be sure you bookmark the Hero Siege helper website. This has an absolute ton of information in it that's very accessible. I use it all the time. If I need to know, I don't know, like what key goes to what dungeon, I'll just pop this up really quickly and it helps you find that. Here is a YouTube video that talks about this entire website and everything that it offers. He has updated it, I think, a couple of times since the last time I reviewed it. There might be a couple of things here and there that are extra, but very, very good website. Be sure you bookmark it.
And that wraps up this build guide. I hope it helps you get the most out of your Hero Siege experience this season. Whether you're pushing through the early levels or tackling the end game, this setup should give you a solid foundation to build from. If you found this guide helpful, please consider leaving a like and sharing it with others in the community. Drop any questions, feedback, or build suggestions in the comments below. I always enjoy hearing from you guys and helping where I can. I'll also be streaming live on Twitch at twitch.tv/Graxy_TV. You can come check me out there, ask me any questions, would love to see you. Don't forget to check the description for the full written guide and any additional resources mentioned in the video. And if you'd like to support the channel, even a small donation goes a long way in helping me continue creating quality Hero Siege content. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications so you don't miss any future guides, updates, or seasonal news. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy sieging.